Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Side note, I got a lot of comments in my last video saying that you like my classic intro, so we're gonna roll with it. Today was an especially yummy day of eating, although I honestly try to make every day a yummy day of eating. By the way, if you didn't already know this, I have all of my recipes that I make in videos written out on my blog, so I'll have the link down below if you ever want to check out my recipes in writing. And with that being said, let's hop right in. At the start of the day, Dan actually started up his smoker because we knew that he was going to be smoking some jalapenos for salsa we were going to make later. So I went out, I checked on the smoker, had to show you this picture of Zoe when I went upstairs. Honestly, I don't even know how we segue from there to my veggie soup, but there you go. So today I decided to do a veggie soup in a crock pot. So I poured in some chopped up celery, a bunch of mushrooms. I had a ton of carrots that I needed to use, so I chopped up some carrots to throw into the soup as well. By the way, I was getting thirsty, so I pulled out a watermelon Waterloo, which is basically like a LaCroix. It's just a sparkling water. It's so good. So then I chopped up some white sweet onions, some yellow bell pepper, a bunch of curly kale that I chopped up into tiny little pieces, and then I also crushed up a bunch of garlic. Now in my fridge, I had some leftover veggie broth from a recipe earlier in the week where I thought I needed a certain amount of veggie broth. I didn't, so I saved it. So I poured that in, but then I needed a bunch more water. So I added in, honestly, like 5 or 6 mason jars full of water. Then I threw in a sprig of fresh rosemary and 2 dried bay leaves. I had a little bit of leftover dill, so I threw that in the mix too. And then because I added so much plain water, I took 2 cubes of veggie bouillon, which basically just makes your water into a veggie broth. I love these bouillon cubes, and I keep tons of them in my cupboard because I feel like I use them for different things all the time. Then I took a little bit of organic extra virgin olive oil and I drizzled that in, and then I sprinkled in some crushed red pepper because I love all of my food to have a kick. And then I threw in a bunch of pepper and some pink Himalayan sea salt. Then I stirred everything together and I put on the lid of the crock pot to sit and cook for 6 hours. Then I decided to make my breakfast, which was more like a brunch. I want to say this was like close to noon at this point. So I made a smoothie with some frozen strawberries, some frozen bananas, a handful of organic dried red wolfberries, which are goji berries, and goji berries are one of the highest antioxidant fruits on the planet. Not just fruits, any food known to man. So a lot of antioxidants are going in that little scoop of berries. Then I used the last little bit of my Vital Proteins collagen peptides. I like this protein powder because it's flavorless, so I can add it to all kinds of things. But today I decided to add it to my smoothie, so I poured some of that in, and then I put in as much spinach as I could possibly fit at the moment. Then I added in about a tablespoon of organic MCT oil. And then I cut open 2 oranges and I squeezed the juice of both of those oranges into my smoothie. I also took half of a lemon and squeezed that into the smoothie. Then I added a little bit of water, obviously struggled a little bit to get my smoothie lid on, and then I blended up my drink. Side note, I love this blender. This is a Ninja blender, and I love that they actually have a smoothie option. Anyways, once I blended it up enough for my lid to be easily removable, I added in a bunch more spinach because I knew I had room. I just couldn't really get it closed before with all of the solid fruit. So yeah, then I let the blender run on smoothie mode, which works honestly amazingly. My smoothies are always perfect when I use smoothie mode on this blender. Now at this point, my sister and her husband actually showed up to our house. She makes the best salsa. So I had her make some salsa. So she took these cans of tomatoes and Dan pulled the jalapenos off the smoker. So she poured her tomatoes into the food processor. Then she added quite a bit of cumin. Then she squeezed half of a lemon. A quarter of a red onion, a bunch of cilantro. We're big cilantro fans over here. Some salt. And then she blended it all together. And oh my gosh, her salsa is amazing normally, but with the smoked jalapeno peppers, like Shayna and I couldn't stop talking about it. We're like, how did we make an already amazing recipe like even more amazing? It's crazy. Go Dan and his smoker, go Shayna and her cooking. I've mentioned them a million times, but I love the siete chips, and today I was eating the lime flavor. So then I made Shayna be in charge of guacamole duty too, because I threw out my neck last week. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that. So she threw onions and cilantro into the food processor, and then she cut open these huge avocados that we've been buying from Walmart lately. If you saw my Walmart grocery haul, these are them, and they're so good. By the way, if you saw that haul, it turns out these avocados were like $2 a piece, not $4 like I thought. Then she added some salt, pepper, some lemon juice, and then blended up the guac. Some days we're in the mood for chunky guacamole. Today we wanted it to be a little smoother, and let me tell you, I have never had guacamole like this in my entire life. That smoked pepper just took it over the top. So at this point, I went to rest in bed because my neck was killing me, and I had one of these chocolate almond butter Hail Mary cups. These are so good, and they're super clean ingredients. Just thought I'd give them a little shout out. Later in the day, I went down to check on my soup, and I just stirred everything up, and it was smelling amazing. That's actually Shayna's husband stirring the soup, and he was talking about how amazing it smelled. And at this point, Dan made fresh noodles for our veggie soup. This is actually incredible, guys. Be prepared to be really impressed with Dan. He created this little flour pile and then added his eggs into the mix and whisked everything together, and then proceeded to knead the dough. While he was kneading the dough, I actually stepped aside to make brownies for everyone that night. So I used this Simple Mills chocolate muffin and cake almond flour mix, and I decided to make the brownie option on the back. So I just threw together all of the extra items that the box says that you need, and then I added in the boxed mix as well, stirred it all together. And while I was stirring that, Dan was getting near the end of kneading the dough for the egg noodles. Once he was done kneading, he wrapped it up in cellophane and put it aside in the fridge for about a half hour. And then he helped me pour out my brownie batter into a glass tray, pan, I don't know what you'd call that. Jar, not a jar, I don't know. We spread that in there, and then I decided to take a couple of white chocolate chips. I know, I'm getting crazy, people. It's the middle of winter. I needed some baked goods. And then I threw some chunky sea salt on top, threw those into the oven to bake, and spoiler alert, I'll already tell you, they're amazing. I bought this box off Amazon, and oh my gosh. Back to Dan. This is about a half hour later. Dan rolled out his dough, and I guess the thing with egg noodles is they thicken up when you cook them. So you really want to roll them as thin as possible. So he does part of it by hand, and then he also has this attachment for our stirrer thingamabob, whatever you call it, that allows him to make noodles. So he has loved utilizing that. I guess it makes the process way easier. So once he made his noodle sheet as flat as he wanted, he added a bunch of flour to the top and the bottom to coat it and make it not only not sticky, but that's also what helps the noodles thicken up in the water. So then he ran the noodles through the attachment to make the noodles. A fun fact, Dan actually can do this by hand. And if you watch all of my food videos and my lifestyle videos, you've probably seen him do that. But he's been loving this attachment. And doesn't that look so cool? It's very magical. So once he got all of his noodles spread out, he cut them down into the right size and then took the noodles and added them to the crock pot. Legitimately, like, my stuff was good. Actually, my soup was okay. Honestly, I needed a lot more salt, I think, while it was cooking. But his noodles are what took it over the top. It was so good, and I honestly wish he had made like 3 times that amount of noodles, because I just could have chowed down on the noodles all night. Once I was done devouring my soup, I had some brownies. Now, it looks like those chocolate chips disappeared, but they really just sunk into the brownie as it was baking, which is really strange. But every time I got a bite of that white chocolate chip, let me tell you, it was so good. I hope that you enjoyed this. I go into these serious food moods, and it's so fun for me to just be able to cook and share ideas with you guys. If you missed my last video, by the way, I did do a Trader Joe's grocery haul, so you'll want to check that out if you're a TJ's fan. By the way, once again, if you've made it this far, don't forget to check the info box, because I have been slipping in secret giveaways, which I guess aren't that secret, but still. So yeah, now I'm really gonna go. Bye, guys.